Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Bhaktivedanta Swami Brahmachari Ashram. Prem Sugho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopika Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Go Premanandi. All glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to Sri Guru Sri Garanga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschatchadesha Tadane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Canto 4, Chapter 8, verse 20. Yasyangri Padmam Paricharya Vishva Vibhavanayata Gunabhipate Ajodhya Tishtat Kalu Parameshyam Padam Jitatma Svasan Abhivandyam Yes, Angri Padmam Paricharya Vishva Vibhavanayata Guna Vipate Adodya Tishtat Kalu Paramestyam Padam Jitatma Svasan Abhivandyam Vibhavanayata Gunabhipate Ajodhya Tishtat Kalu Paramestyam Padam Chitatma Swasan Abhivanyam. Vaishnavis.
Yasyam Vipadmam Paricharya Vishva. Yasyam Vipadmam Paricharya Vishva. Vivan Nayata Guni Gunadipate. Ajodhyatista Kalo Paramestiam.
Yasya, whose angry leg, Padmam, lotus feet, Paricharya, worshipping, Vishva, universe, Vibhavanaya, for creating, Atta, received, Guna Avipate, for acquiring the required qualifications. Ajja, the unborn, Lord Brahma. Adya Tishtat, became situated. Kalu, undoubtedly. Paramestiam, supreme position within the universe. Param, position. Jit Atma, one who was conquered his mind. What is it? Svasana, by controlling the life air. Abhivanya, worshipable. Translation. Suniti continued. The Supreme Personality of God is so great that simply by worshiping his lotus feet, your great-grandfather, Lord Brahma, acquired the necessary qualifications to create this universe. Although he is unborn and is the chief of all living creatures, he is situated in that exalted post because of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom even great yogis worship by controlling the mind and regulating the life air. Report. Suniti cited the example of Lord Brahma, who was Dhruva Maharaj's great-grandfather. Although Lord Brahma is also a living being, by his penance and austerity he acquired the exalted position of a creator of this universe by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. To become successful in any attempt, one not only has to undergo severe penances and austerities, but also must be dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This indication has been given to Dhruva Maharaj by his stepmother and was now confirmed by his own mother, Suniti. Translation. Suniti continued. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so great that simply by worshiping his lotus feet, your great-grandfather, Lord Brahma, acquired the necessary qualifications to create this universe. Although he is unborn and is the chief of all living creatures, he is situated in that exalted post because of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom even great yogis worship by controlling the mind and regulating the life air. So first, the stepmother advised Dhruva to worship the Supreme Lord so that next lifetime he could be born in her womb. And now Suniti, his mother, Dhruva's mother, also gives the same advice. You must worship the Supreme Lord. So both of them have some very valuable knowledge that you have to worship the Supreme Lord, not only for benedictions like this, getting a position as a king or whatever, but the understanding of Suniti is that actually the Lord can even grant the impossible. He can do anything. So here she praises the Supreme Lord for giving a position to Brahma, who was actually in the line from, we can say he's the great-grandfather of Dhruva, because Swami is born from Brahma. And then he had the son Uttanapada, and Uttanapada had Dhruva as his son, so he's actually a great-grandfather. So he's got Dhruva himself as a great lineage, even though he was rejected as the inferior son of the king. In any case, Brahma is a post, and that post has a lot of power in it. Brahma is the first person in the universe, the first person with a material body. But his material body is so subtle that most people can't even see it. A very, very powerful body. But how did he get the power? So in the second canto, and also in the third canto, it's described how he actually had no knowledge when he was born. And then he followed the instructions of a voice that said, do austerity. So he sat down on his lotus and he meditated on the Supreme Lord. That was his austerity meditation, which is a type of bhakti, meditate on the Lord. So he meditated on the Supreme Lord, and then the Lord appeared to him and he granted him the powers to create the material world. So after that, Brahma was able to mentally create planetary systems and all the species of living entities. And then he gave birth to Swami Bhanu, who started the lineage of kings. So all of this was carried out with great intelligence and great skill. But the source was Supreme Lord. Without his mercy, nothing could be done. Without his mercy, Brahma was confused. He didn't know what to do. So though Brahma is famous for having such a great position as the creator of the whole universe, that power actually comes from the Supreme Lord. So of course we consider Brahma as a type of avatar. He's called a guna avatar. So Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu are called guna avatars because they're in charge of the gunas. Vishnu's in charge of sattva, Brahma's in charge of rajas, and Shiva is in charge of tamas. Right? So to do that, they are given special powers. Of course, Vishnu doesn't need any special powers because he is Supreme Lord, but Brahma needs some extra power to do this work. So the power is an endowment. The Lord gives him that power to do that. Generally, we think of God as the creator. The Supreme Lord is the creator. But he gives the direct power to Brahma. He doesn't do it directly. He does it through his servant, Lord Brahma. So he's called Avatar, but actually he's not the Avatar in the sense that he's the Supreme Lord. He's a Jiva with special powers given by the Supreme Lord. So because of the outstanding nature of those powers, then he is called Avatar. So he's in a very special position, in spite of having a material body or whatever. Among all the different living entities, he's given this power to create everything, including the bodies for all the other living entities. So that is given, that power is given by the Supreme Lord. Yeah. So that is a material benediction. And people, of course, like Dhruva, he desired a material post. He wanted something material. So Suniti is advising him, if you want this material goal, which looks impossible, that is to become the king, or to get the favor of the king, then you have to worship the Supreme Lord. So that is, it's bhakti because it's worship of the Supreme Lord and accepting that he is supreme, and they don't go to anyone else, devatas or whatever. But it's also not pure bhakti because the immediate desire is to get a kingdom. Now, Suniti, of course, gives a nice illustration. Well, Brahma got his position because of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So what does speak of getting a lesser kingdom? Obviously, if Brahma can create the whole world by the power of the Lord, the Supreme Lord can grant you a kingdom within the material world that's created by Lord Brahma. So this is one of the powers of the Supreme Lord, that he can grant any material benediction because he's in control of everything. He's in control of Brahma, he's in control of Shiva, he's in control of all the devatas who give benedictions in this material world. So, better to go to Supreme Lord than go to a devata or Lord Brahma. So Suniti could have said, well, you pray to Brahma and then he will give you the powers. But she says, you go to Supreme Lord. He is the origin of Brahma himself. He gave birth to Brahma, and he's in a special category. So the Lord definitely can give anything in the material world. But the Lord can give more than that also. So that is what the devotees who practice pure bhakti understand. More than giving material benedictions, the Lord can grant spiritual benedictions. So spiritual benedictions mean, of course, that what we get is non-material. Here, the result will be material, getting a kingdom in the material world. That's matter, temporary. So we can get spiritual benedictions from the Lord, something which is permanent and spiritual. For instance, you can get a place in the spiritual world, a palace in the spiritual world, a body in the spiritual world, which is eternal. Eternal body, eternal place, eternal palace, eternal garden, eternal food, or whatever. So if you want, you can ask for those things from the Supreme Lord. Give me a spiritual body, give me a spiritual place, eternal place. Then I don't have to build my house and whatever like that. It's always there. So we can ask for spiritual benedictions from the Supreme Lord. Or on a lesser level, we can ask for liberation. Just get me out of this material world of temporary things and let me be some eternal something. That's all. And let me eternally existing as consciousness beyond the material world. So the Lord can grant liberation. He can also grant spiritual benedictions. But those who practice pure bhakti don't even ask for the spiritual benedictions. So they don't ask for salokya, sarsti, samipya, sayuja. They don't ask for any of these things. So what kind of benediction they want? So they only want service to the Supreme Lord. So service to the Supreme Lord means that we're not asking for ourselves. If we're trying to get a spiritual body, then it's for me. So there's a little bit of a self-interest there. But if we're asking for service to the Lord, that's not for me. We're asking for pleasing the Lord. So it's actually for benefit, giving benefit to the Supreme Lord. So that is what we call pure bhakti. One who aspires simply to serve the Lord or please the Lord. That is the essence of bhakti. And if we start mixing it, it's acceptable by the Lord, as in the case of Dhruva. He accepts that bhakti where he's trying to get a kingdom or whatever. But best position is simply to aspire for service to the Supreme Lord. So, of course, we see Prabhupada when he explains the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, what does he say? It is, O Krishna and O Shakti of the Lord, the energy of the Lord, which is Radharani, please engage me in your service. So it's not please give me something for myself. It's please engage me in your service. Of course, we're getting something, the service, but the service is to please the Lord. We're trying to give joy to the Lord, not to ourselves. So that is a very, we could say, unique type of mood to think of, not think of yourself, to think of another person. So that actually is what we call love. Real love is not caring for yourself, but caring for the other person. Of course, even in the material world, we got a reflection of that, where a person sacrifices themselves for another person, or the parents sacrifice themselves for the children, like that, or the man for the woman, or the woman for the man, or whatever. But there's always some material conception there, all that type of attachment. So when it's absolutely pure and it's directed towards the Supreme Lord, a similar type of love, but directed towards the Lord only for his pleasure, then we call that bhakti in practice. And when it's mature, it is called prema. It's the same attitude, but when it's perfect and there's no material contamination and no material identity, then we call it prema. Okay? So prema actually is simply expressing love without any conditions for the Supreme Lord. So we could ask, well, why can't we have unconditional love for other jivas, jivas in the spiritual world? We can, and we do, but the primary personality is the Supreme Lord. He is the one who is most attractive of all. So he becomes the center of our affection. He is the source of bhakti itself and prema. And he is the source of bliss. So we experience the highest bliss when we affectionately serve the Lord. So even though we're not on the highest level and we're just practicing sadhana bhakti, even sadhana bhakti has great shakti in it, because it's not like jnana or yoga or any other material process. It's actually defined as the Lord's internal energy, bhakti. It takes the form of using our voice, or using our eye, or using our hands, or using our feet, so it looks like it's material. But actually it's shakti of the Lord in essence. And how can that be? Because the essence of the bhakti is not simply using your hands and feet, but it's the cultivation of the relationship with the Lord. That's the essence of the bhakti when we do kirtan or whatever. We're cultivating our relationship with the Lord through that. So we see that the very definition of bhakti given by Rupa Goswami in Nectar Devotion is anukulena Krishnanusilanam. Anusilanam. Cultivation of a relationship with Krishna, which is favorable, with affection for the Lord. So if we do our acts of bhakti with that, then it's actually called bhakti. If we just do the things, hearing, chanting, remembering, whatever, but we don't have that cultivation of a relationship with the Lord, then it's empty. It is simply it's like the parrot chanting Hare Krishna. Chanting doesn't know what it means. So the two things are there: the attitude of trying to please the Lord without any motivations at all, and then we do in sadhana bhakti, we do the activities using our material senses and whatever. So that is a very powerful process. Now, of course, on the highest level, we don't have any material senses. We'll have spiritual senses in the spiritual world with spiritual body, etc., and no contamination, nothing is there. So then it's called prema. But when we're in this material world, and we do have anartas, material desires, karmas, material body, material senses, ego, false ego, and we're doing bhakti, or sadhana bhakti, and we're trying to increase that affection for the Lord. Even though it's not perfect, it's still accepted by the Lord, and it's still called bhakti. it reaches its perfection in prema, but here it's acceptable by the Lord as sadhana bhakti. Now, of course, he accepts impure bhakti also. The Shakti is still there to some degree, but pure bhakti is always preferable because there's less obstructions there. So it is a very powerful process, even in sadhana. And so we see here in the case of Dhruva, so powerful that he could get his material desire fulfilled. And he got a kingdom of his father, and he got even a greater kingdom later on, greater than Brahma's kingdom even, because Dhruva-loka is actually situated above Brahma-loka. Oh, no, sorry, it's not. It's actually below. But it's an eternal planet because Vishnu is there. So that's the why it's superior and greater than his grandfather's thing. So how could that be arranged? Because Supreme Lord can give any benediction. But the higher benediction than that is that Dhruva actually lost his desire for material things. And you don't want to serve the Lord purely. So that was the real treasure that Dhruva actually got. So therefore, he ultimately attained a level of pure bhakti through this whole process. So if one practices mixed bhakti, the good effect is eventually, if one is lucky and gets the chance to associate with pure devotees, then one can get to the level of pure bhakti. And if we do pure bhakti, what's the difference? Then we can get prema. And if we do the impure bhakti, we can get salokya, sarsti, all that, sarupya. But the relationship is weaker, much weaker. Yeah. So to get real prema with dasya, sakya, vatsalya, madhurya, then we have to do Sudha bhakti or pure bhakti. So therefore, when we're doing our bhakti, we have to make sure that we're not covering that intention to serve the Lord with our own desires. And then it becomes the most powerful. But even if it isn't, even if it is impure, as in the case of Dhruva here, it still gives very, very powerful effects, inconceivable effects. Why? Because the Supreme Lord responds to it. In Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? There's 4 types of devotees. The one who's suffering, so therefore he goes to the Lord to get rid of his suffering. The one who wants material benedictions, and the Lord will give him material benedictions. And then the one who is inquisitive and the one who is in knowledge. So the Lord says they're all my devotees. So the Lord accepts them. He accepts even the one who is doing the impure bhakti. As here with Dhruva. Dhruva goes and he follows the instructions of his mother. He follows the instructions of Narada Muni. But he's looking for a kingdom. So that's impure bhakti. But the Lord responds. Yeah? So even to this mixed bhakti, the Lord gives a very wonderful response, a very powerful response. So bhakti in any form is very powerful. And it's so powerful that even if it isn't with any faith and any devotion, still has effect. So we have the case of Ajamil. No devotion. Great sinner. And he just named his son Narayana. It's not even bhakti, really. So it's called namabhas, without any faith at all. And he got great effect. All of his karmas got destroyed. None of his sinful activities had any effect. The reactions all disappeared. So the Yamadutas couldn't touch him. And there was no devotion there. But at least he was doing the practice of chanting the Lord's name. Because his named his son Narayana. So it was accidental bhakti. Even then it had effect. Why? Because it is the Lord's internal Shakti. The name itself chanted accidentally. Even then, the Shakti is still there of the Lord's name. And so if we chant the Lord not in namabhas, but we could have namabhas accidentally or namabhas with faith. Namabhas with faith means we mix it with material desires or whatever like that. Yeah? So that also has greater strength than the accidental one. But greater than that, of course, is the Sudha Nam and Sudha Bhakti, more powerful. The Lord's more attracted. So in any case, the process of bhakti, even accidental bhakti, is powerful, but done with endeavor is better, and done with purity is the best, has the best effect of all. So this process of bhakti is powerful because it is the Shakti of the Lord, and the Lord directly responds to that. So it is said in the first canto there, in discussing the different stages of bhakti. So there's the stage of anartha nivritti, where your anarthas get dissipated. So there, the statement of the Bhagavatam is that the Lord himself, that Krishna appears in the heart, and he destroys all the anarthas. So it's a direct response of the Supreme Lord, not even Paramatma, but Krishna. He's attracted to the devotee who is practicing, and then he takes care of them. So our progress in bhakti is quick because intervention of the Supreme Lord. And Krishna says in chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, very quickly you can overcome the ocean of birth and death. Why is that? Intervention of Krishna. Krishna helps the person. He helps destroy the anarthas. He helps devotee become attracted, helps them advance, etc. So it's the Lord's personal intervention with bhakti. So, of course, the sixth quality of bhakti mentioned in Nectar Devotion is Krishna Karshani. Bhakti attracts Krishna. So this is particularly true for prema, where Krishna is completely under the control of the devotee. But still, even Krishna is attracted to any devotee. And we see with Ajamil, even to the name chanted, still there's mercy of the Lord. The Yamadutas can't touch Ajamil because the Vishnudutas come. And they say you can't touch him, simply because he chanted the name of the Lord. And if one does mixed bhakti, again, the Lord personally interferes. So we see the case of Gajendra. He also was doing bhakti because, conscious bhakti, because he was chanting stotras, praises, verses of praising Vishnu. But he had a desire there, material desire. Get me out of this situation with the crocodile. Free me from the clutches of the crocodile. That was his immediate desire. Get rid of this suffering, this pain. So it wasn't pure bhakti. What happened? Lord heard his cry in the spiritual world for help. So the Lord personally gave up Lakshmi, got on Garuda, and came down and saved Gajendra. Even though he was an elephant, wasn't even a human being. So even we have mixed bhakti, then the Lord directly responds. There's some direct response from the Lord. So none of this happens with karma yoga, jnana yoga, or Astanga yoga. The Lord does not directly intervene in those processes. He sets them up, and they're in the scripture. In that sense, they're permitted by the Lord or recommended for certain people. But the Lord doesn't personally involve himself in those people and advancing them through the gunas and whatnot. And like that. However, in order to get the result of karma yoga, jnana yoga, or Astanga yoga, that is elevation in the material world, or liberation in jnana and yoga, you have to at least respect the Lord. So you have to have a little bhakti there. If you don't have any bhakti and you're an offender, you can't get liberation. You can't go to Svargaloka. But the Lord is not passionately involved with those persons, but he is very attached to the devotees, even the one doing the mixed bhakti, or even the person that accidentally chants the name of the Lord or does accidental bhakti or whatever. The Lord is excited about the process of bhakti. So however you get it is attractive to the Lord. But if one is dedicated, much better. The Lord becomes more dedicated. And the more one goes through pure bhakti, if one gets to prema, then the Lord's most under control, most attracted, and he becomes controlled by the devotee. So the Lord is personally involved with the whole process of devotion, so it is very, very special for everyone. So it's a unique process. It is not it's not in the same category as karma, jnana, or yoga, which are products of the material world. Bhakti is coming directly from the Supreme Lord, his Sarup Shakti, his internal energy. So it is completely different, and therefore very, very powerful. So it can grant material benedictions, it can give you liberation, it can give you sarupya, salokya, sarsti, etc. Or it can give you prema. So, of all the types of bhakti, of course, Dhruva, he does actually deity worship. He makes a murti out of clay, and then he worships that deity, and he meditates, etc. But the most powerful process is Nam Sankirtan, which, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed to the material world. It's there in scriptures, but nobody was really practicing so seriously. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made that the main element for everybody in Kali Yuga, and every other thing depends upon that. Yeah, if we do any other process or any other type of bhakti, still we have to do the Nam Sankirtan. That gives life to everything else. So it's also the simplest process and most available to everybody, but even though it's like that, it doesn't mean that therefore it's for less advanced people and unintelligent people. It's also for the highest people. So yes, even babies can chant Hare Krishna. But we see that the highest devotees, the gopis and Radharani, are chanting the name of Krishna also in the highest prema. It's not sadhana anymore. It's in prema, but they're chanting the name of the Lord. So when Krishna, the first Rasalila is described that Krishna played his flute, and then all the gopis ran out of their houses, all confused and whatever, and they came to Krishna, and then Krishna said, go back home, then they all got confused, and then they argued with Krishna, and finally Krishna accepted them. But then he disappeared, and they got really disturbed, and they went mad looking for Krishna, and they went into the forest, and they went deeper and deeper in the forest, and they found his footprints there, and then they found the footprints of Radha. Some of them got a little envious of Radha. Then they found Radha was also there, and then they looked for Krishna, and they couldn't find him in the forest. And the forest got darker and darker as the branches got thicker and thicker, and couldn't see the moonlight, couldn't see any footprints, so they gave up. They didn't know what to do. And they were still eager for Krishna. So they went to the bank of the Jamuna, where there was lots of moonlight, and they sat down there. And what did they do? Kirtan. In their height of distress, in separation from Krishna, which is actually the high point in Madhurya, Prema, in separation. Then they did Kirtan. And what happened? When they did Kirtan, Krishna appeared. So the Kirtan was able to call Krishna. And this was in the, with the highest level of prema in the gopis. So they did Kirtan also, and they got this result of making Krishna appear. So therefore, it operates on the highest level of the highest devotees in the spiritual world, but it operates for all the people in the material world, even unqualified people, it has a very, very great effect. So, therefore, it says the Nam is Chintamani. Nam is Chintamani Krishna's. Krishna's Chintamani. He can give everything. Supreme Lord can give everything. He can give you material benedictions like Brahma Loka or Dhruva Loka or whatever. He can give liberation, whatever. He can give siddhis like the yogi gets. Or he can give spiritual world, salokya, sarsti. Or he can give prema. And name is the same. Abhinatan namanamino. The name of Krishna and Krishna are identical. So chanting the name of Krishna gives the same effect as Krishna himself. It gives everything that Krishna gives. That's so that you chant the name, you can get material benedictions. If you chant the name, you can also get liberation. If you chant the name, you can get salokya and sarsti, etc. You chant the name, and you can get the highest prema as well. So very, very simple process, but also contains everything. Whatever's in Krishna is in the name. So a very, very great benediction that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given to us in this yuga. Okay, any question?
Well, you were saying before that he named his son Narayana accidentally, but he was actually practicing at that stage. I think it was when he named his son.
Well, actually, he was actually doing all sorts of sinful activities. This was the last son after, he rejected his wife and took up with the prostitute. And then he did all his thieving activities and kidnapping people and extorting money from everybody and whatever. And then finally he had this last son. So he named him Narayana. which is his good fortune, but he wasn't really worshipping Vishnu at that stage. Originally he was a Brahmana, so he obviously knew about Vishnu, among other things, but he's not particularly a Vaishnava or anything. He was, following the rules and regulation. But that his life as a Brahmana was not strong enough to even keep him away from sinful activity. So therefore, he lost everything, and he became the most sinful person. And then he named his son Narayana. And the thing was, not only named him Narayana, but he was most attracted to that son. So he kept calling his name. So he repeatedly called his name as well, not just once. But it said that even the first time he named his son, when he said, "Your name is Narayana," all of his karmas had gone. So that was the power of the name. Now the reason why it was all gone was he didn't have any offense in his chanting. He had sinful activity, definitely, but he didn't have any enmity towards the Lord, or towards the name of the Lord, or towards bhakti, or towards devotees. He had no offense. So it had quite a powerful effect for him, just by chanting the name of the Lord once, accidentally. There was no offense there, so it had a great effect. If there is offense, then it doesn't destroy all of the karmas immediately. It takes some more time.
Raj, you were explaining about pure bhakti, that our intention should be to favorably serve Krishna. But in the spiritual world, we also hear of characters like Jatila, Kutila, and Abhimanyu.
Uh-huh.
So what is the rasa with Krishna?
This is all Leela of the Lord. He arranges for people to take certain roles at certain times. So, of course, everything in the spiritual world is based upon prema for the Lord, but they may take certain roles too. Just like we have Chandravali competing with Radharani, so it says since Radharani is her enemy or whatever like that, well, how can that be? But they're all devotees of Krishna, ultimately. So none of them hate Krishna or anything like that. They're all devotees. So some arrangement of the Supreme Lord that they take up these roles for pastimes.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inaugurated the Sankirtan movement, chanting of the holy names.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, in the previous Yuga, Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, who introduced the meditation, fire sacrifice, and
yeah.
worship process?
Yeah. So in Laghu Bhagavatam, Rupa Goswami, and also even Bhagavatam, it describes these forms in the 11th canto there. The Yuga avatars are there. So the Yuga avatars introduce it. And there's a Yuga avatar in Satya Yuga. He's called Sukla, the white one. And he propagates meditation. And in Treta Yuga, Yagya is the name of the form. He's red in color, Rakta, and his name is Yagya. And he propagates the sacrifices and all that. And in Dwapara Yuga, we have a form who does deity worship. Generally, in all the other 999 Kali Yugas in a day of Brahma, it's not Krishna himself that would dharma each one of them.
There's a question. Brahmaji was given blessing in second canto, then why he was influenced by Maya to kidnap the calves in 10th canto?
Oh yeah. He was given a blessing, you will never fall into Maya in your whole lifetime. So it's explained by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur that actually this whole incident where he kidnapped the calves and cowherd boys was an arrangement of the Lord. So we cannot blame Brahma for that. Now he thinks I'm an offender, definitely, because that's the nature of a devotee. But actually it was Krishna's arrangement because he actually made a promise. So it's not the material Maya. We cannot say, okay, Brahma's in Maya and he's got material fault there for doing this. He's got material pride. It was an arrangement of the Lord for his pastime. So therefore we can't blame Brahma for that.
In the case of Dhruva Maharaj, you see, you also mentioned in previous class that he had this initial desire of getting the kingdom. So the Lord, even though he doesn't want, the Lord gave him the meditation and fulfilled it. In case of Ajamil also, he got the second chance, like he first came and he didn't go to Vishnu in the first case. So if you see that even though one approaching the Supreme Lord Bhakti, he want to do pure, but then he might have some desire, so he has to undergo the desire, then the Lord gives.
Okay, should he undergo those desires? It's an arrangement of the Lord. The Lord is very perceptive, so he sees what is best for the devotee. In some cases, it is said in Bhagavatam, he takes everything away, so you won't have any material attachments. As in the case of the Avanti Brahmana, he lost everything and then he renounced and then he became a devotee like that. But before that, because he had everything and he was attached to his... And even Prabhupada cites that, the verse when was the pharmacy he had, somebody broke into it and stole, the worker stole everything, So he said, okay, it's a sign from Krishna that I should renounce everything. So, in some cases, the Lord may take things away. Other places, in other circumstances, he may give things to the devotee when he feels it is not detrimental to their advancement in bhakti, and maybe they can use that for their devotional service. So that's the case of like the Manus. They're great devotees also. Swayambhuva Manu is a great devotee. Vairasya Manu is a great devotee. But they have huge positions in the material world, and the Lord allows that as part of their service. And of course, Brahma also has a huge position, but it's part of his service, so he doesn't take it away from him at all. And then we have cases like Dhruva. He said, well, I don't want the kingdom, but then the Lord said, you have to take it because you have that desire, and I want to do it for you. So, ultimately, it was, we can say, it's an experience that these devotees undergo. And through that, they develop more attraction for the Supreme Lord, because they understand that simply directly serving the Lord is actually better than staying around on the earth planet and or within the material universe and doing service like ruling, etc. They'd rather just wholeheartedly serve the Lord in their spiritual body in the spiritual world. So it gives them a chance to develop the intensity of their devotion even more in some cases. And of course, it makes us realize, well, we should be very careful what we ask for from the Lord, because we may regret it later on. So we should be very careful in the beginning.
Maharaj, you mentioned that the Lord directly intervenes rather than power. The Lord directly intervenes.
Yeah.
In case of good thing. How would that...
Destroys the anarthas. He is in your heart and he destroys the anarthas. So, in other words, it doesn't say Paramatma. So Paramatma is generally a witness, yeah? And he's simply neutrally observing everything and everyone. That same Paramatma becomes Bhagavan, of course, when he actively interacts with the devotee. Like Paramatma is a feature not for devotees, but for yogis and others who would simply look at that form and maybe merge into him or whatever. And they don't do any direct service. So if we do direct service to Paramatma, then he becomes Bhagavan also. So that Paramatma can function as Bhagavan also. But of course, the devotees of Krishna then are worshipping Krishna, so that would be natural that Krishna is the one who's functioning to help the devotee in all cases. But, of course, we cannot see that in all cases. We don't have the vision to see it until we get to Bhava. We can't see the Lord, so we don't even know what's happening. But the Lord is doing so many things for us that we don't know about.
In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the description of Ragatmika devotees, there's a division of Sambhogichamayi and Tattva-Bhavachamayi.
Yeah.
So, what is the difference between Kubja's devotion and Sambhogichamayi devotion?
Those two types.
No, the Kubja's devotion.
Yeah, well, that's also a type of Madhurya Rasa, but that's explained in the Ujjwal Nilamani. That's a lesser type. It's called Samanya, a very general type, whereas the Gopis have a very intense special type, which is much purer and higher. Of course, even Kubja we say is pure because anyone who associates with the Lord must be pure, but the desire is on a lesser level and not so intense. Much higher level. That's a little different, though, from those divisions in the when it talks about the different types of Madhurya Rasa. So one is more or less like the Sakis, who have a direct relationship with Krishna, and the other is the desire to simply have the same bhava, the same mood of Madhurya, but who don't directly interact with Krishna. Those are, obviously means the Manjaris. So the Sakis are directly contacting Krishna like this. The Manjaris serve Radha and Krishna, but it's still Madhurya Rasa. So they have that the same mood, but not in direct contact with Krishna.
You say that Varnashram is a material system but then Krishna, when he comes to earthly pastimes, he cannot follow Varnashram.
He operates in the Varnashram. Yeah. So we have the material Varnashram in this world, and it's set up by the Manus, like Swami Manu and his descendants. They set up that whole system. And then later Manus also preserved that system. And it has to do with the gunas, people in the gunas. So we have Tamagun, and then we have Sudras, and Rajagun, we have Rajagun, Tamagun, we have Vaishyas, and Rajagun, Sattvagun, we have Kshatriyas, and then Sattvagun, we have Brahmanas. So it's based on gunas, the whole system, classification of varnas based on gunas. Now it is mentioned in the scripture, recommended in the scripture, and the scripture is not different from the Lord, and so in that sense it's all spiritual also. But it's basically dealing with the gunas of the material world, the whole process of Varnashram. Now, Krishna, when he comes to the material world, he has a spiritual body, and his associates are all spiritual, and they perform pastimes, and in those pastimes, he also takes part in that system. So he's a cowherd boy and a Vaishya in Vrindavan, then he's a Kshatriya in Dwarka, whatever, and he follows those rules. So that type of system is completely spiritual. It's not dependent on gunas at all, because Krishna has no guna. He's not in Rajagun. But he's playing that through his pastimes. He's taking up that role in his pastimes, that's all. And all of his associates also, the Yadus also are not in Rajagun. They're also spiritual entities in the spiritual world, Nityasiddhas and whatever. So they're using the Varnashram system for their pastimes. And so therefore it's not a material system for them, but only for pastimes. Well, in Dwarka, yes, we have, because we have Kshatriyas there, and then we have the sages up there who are the Brahmins, and then we have the Vaishya community and whatever like that, and then in Vrindavan and Goloka, then Krishna is a Vaishya like that. But no gunas attached to it. It's simply a part of their, we can say, their setting for them to carry out their pastimes. Well, they get better than Ajamil, because Ajamil did Namabhas with just, accidental. So we're doing it with faith. So we get advancement in terms of Namabhas, and hopefully then we will get to Sudanam eventually in next lifetime. Yeah. But also, hopefully, that because in ISKCON at least we got so much knowledge that we get beyond Namabhas and we do Sudanam, that we're not chanting Hare Krishna to just fulfill our material desires or whatever like that. So generally we understand that we're trying to establish a relationship with Krishna. So most devotees would be beyond that stage, and will be up to the Sudanam level.
With that chanting, when we are leaving our body, it is not that devotees will realize what that relationship with Krishna is.
Yeah.
We are striving to understand that relationship.
So generally we continue to progress until we get to prema. We're at Nishtha, then we next lifetime, then we start with Nishtha, and we go maybe to Ruchi, next lifetime we get up to Asakti, next lifetime we get to Bhava, next lifetime we get to prema. So we see in the case of Bharat Maharaj, he had Bhava stage, but then he became attracted to a deer, so he fell down, and then he became a deer. Next lifetime, then he continued, and he got to Prema. So he continued The Lord says nothing is lost in the process of bhakti. Niyabhikrama nasasi pratyavaya navijate. So that bhakti somehow is preserved by the Lord and somehow it's going to manifest sooner or later. In the case of Bharat, of course, it took another lifetime because he gave him a deer for one lifetime. The next lifetime, then the bhakti manifested again and he got prema.
But he also here, one conversation Prabhupada was having with his disciples where Prabhupada says 75% pure chanting and I will take you all back home back to Godhead. So how do we have to wait till we reach that pure platform of chanting and prema, or Prabhupada will...
Well, yeah, the general description is that in the scriptures is that it was called sadhana, siddhi. Through sadhana, we progress and progress and progress until we get to prema, and then we go to the spiritual world. And then the sudden processes there are called kripa siddhi, but it's very rare. So it's not that everybody gets it. Like Narada Muni, he gives kripa siddhi to Mrigari the hunter. And in 3 months, he gets bhava. 3 months from zero, he had nothing, he's killing animals. And then 3 months he had bhava. So that's kripa siddhi, obviously. Or we have, like Prahlad in the womb, he heard from when Narada Muni was talking to his mother. And then when he comes out of the womb, he's already, very advanced devotee. So that's an example of kripa siddhi. They may not get prema immediately, but they get bhava, as in the case of Mrigari the hunter, but still it's a sudden advancement due to mercy of a devotee, or it could be mercy of the Lord himself, but much, much rarer. So we shouldn't rely on that. Okay, we'll just do whatever, and we die and we go to the Lord. The devotee generally takes a humble position and says, well, I'm most unqualified, so therefore, even if it takes me 1,000,000 lifetimes, I'll keep striving for Krishna, and then become purer and purer and purer, and then eventually the Lord will have mercy on me and take me with him.
You mentioned before the difference between Krishna in the heart and Paramatma.
Mm-hmm.
And how Chaitanya Guru versus
Chaitya Guru.
So who's speaking there? Krishna, Paramatma, or Guru?
Yeah, well, Chaitya could be either. Paramatma, of course, gives less direct advice because he's like the neutral observer of everything for all the jivas, and the animals and the plants and the human beings, and then he helps you fulfill your desires, So if you got desire for this, then he helps you arrange, but not in any direct way. He can make some arrangement for you don't even know about. So he's not really responding to bhakti as such. So when there's a direct interaction with the Lord, then it may be the same form with 4 arms, Paramatma, but actually he's Bhagavan at that stage. Because Paramatma and Bhagavan are actually the same entity, the same form. But it changes because one is directly interacting with that form. And then there's an affectionate relationship established. So therefore, we call him Bhagavan in that case. And he reveals his more qualities than Paramatma reveals to people.
Maharaj, is it an offense to chant for relieving material distress of another devotee?
Oh, well, if it's for devotees, of course, then it's a type of devotee seva, we could say like that. Service to devotees or whatever. But, of course, we can't be too attached to the material aspects of things and do that constantly. That's our only endeavor to see the material effects, then, it starts getting into mixed bhakti.
In one of the conversations, after the lecture, Prabhupada says 100% pure devotion.
What's that?
100% pure devotion.
Yeah.
Then after that, devotees were like, just stuck, and then Prabhupada said, at least you should do 80% like that, one conversation. So how do we understand that? That means like even in our devotion we do, and if we can't get 100% perfection, still the mercy of the Guru or mercy of the Acharya, we can still.
Well, definitely that helps out because without mercy we don't get anything. We can't even progress without mercy, mercy of the devotees. So definitely that's there. But as I said, to get complete, get up to prema by mercy is very, very rare. Very, very rare. So we shouldn't rely on that. We should put forth endeavor to try to get perfection.
It's also said that sadhana bhakti, just that is sufficient to go to the prema bhakti, or we have to some point
Well, of course, even in sadhana, mercy is included. So that is why within in sadhana we have to take association of devotees.
Who are the examples of people who started impurely and still progress to love God and prayer?
Who is it?
Any examples of
What's that?
devotees who started impurely, started chanting
Oh, impurely.
impurely and then progress further?
I guess we say most people are the example of that. They come to Krishna because they're suffering in the material world. You know, most people are like that. They're dissatisfied with the material world, so maybe by chanting I can get some effect. And of course, people are looking for peace and something in their mind, so then they, okay, chant Hare Krishna, be peaceful in the mind. So that's an example of that. It's the most common, probably, approach to surrender to the Lord is the suffering people in the material world, you know. And of course we have Gajendra as a scriptural example of that. Okay, Hare Krishna.